So I'm here with Jolene Kennedy, Craig Odar, and Eric Fair, and we are going to talk about responsive design. So what exactly is responsive design?
Well, responsive design is a hot new trend that's taking over a lot of websites out there, and it's actually a really smart new technology where you build your website in a way that it allows the web server to basically present your website in a different form based on the device that's accessing it. Basically, the website responds to the device, whether it's a mobile phone, a tablet computer, or a nice widescreen high-definition laptop monitor. And it allows you to present your content in different ways for each of those devices.
Jolene, give me an example of how a website is responsive to a tablet or a smartphone.
Okay, so for instance, most websites that we're building these days have a large splashy branding area, and depending on the device, for an iPad, maybe the branding area gets smaller, and maybe we usually have some thumbnail images, maybe those disappear and we have little arrows to go back and forth instead. And then for mobile, maybe the entire branding area disappears altogether.
So the behavior is really different depending on the device.
Yes.
And what happens to navigation, for example?
The navigation will wrap to a second line or maybe even a third line for a tablet device, but then on a mobile device it'll kind of collapse up into a drop-down navigation.
So how is this done? Craig, how does this work with my content management system?
If you plan ahead, there's nothing different. As long as the elements are laid out correctly, then you can manage the content in the same way that you would for any desktop experience. And then the style sheets will take over and make sure that the content is displayed in the fashion appropriate to your device.
So I'm entering the content exactly the same way, and where does the magic happen, Jolene?
Well, the magic happens in the style sheets. So within our style sheet, we have 3 or 4 different sets of styles that determine where things are laid out depending on the width of the device.
So why is this important, Eric?
This is important because the whole world is going mobile. Next year, in fact, in India, the amount of mobile traffic to the internet from a mobile device is actually going to exceed the amount of internet traffic coming from desktop devices. And we're seeing this trend everywhere in the world, in China, Brazil, Europe, United States. All countries in the world are experiencing double-digit growth in mobile devices accessing the internet. So in 2 years from now, 5 years from now, it's just going to be massive. So we're trying to encourage you to plan ahead for how your visitors are going to be accessing your site, and take into consideration the fact that they're more and more likely to be accessing it from a mobile device.
So how does this impact the scope of work, the budget, and the timeline? Craig, what happens to the designing and the building, say the wireframes?
I think it's going to impact the earlier stages of the design, the wireframing, the designs especially, because you want to make sure that it looks the best it can on the different devices, and that the elements are laid out in a way that makes sense.
And what about on the implementation side, Jolene?
It definitely adds some time to implementation because we're creating the 4 separate sets of styles, and then we have to test for all of the different devices, but certainly less than building 4 completely separate websites.
What about testing?
Testing does take additional time. You want to have all the devices on hand so that you can look at it and make sure that everything looks correct on the actual physical device. But for the most part, since you're entering the content once, the content is the text, the words, they're all going to be the same.
So let me make sure I get this straight. It's actually the same website, so I'm browsing to the same URL, but it looks different.
That's right.
It's the same content. You entered it into the same content management system. It just looks different, and that look is really specialized and detailed for the device that you're using. So your content is going to look great regardless of the device.
What sounds like it's the way of the future. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching the Matrix Minute. Don't forget to connect with us on our blog and social media. For more information, go to matrixgroup.net.